Thank you once again, and I welcome you to the Ninja Security User Group for our bi-monthly meeting. So we'll be talking today on configuring and manage threat protection by using Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And we'll be having our amazing speaker in the person of Joy Emedom. So Joy Emedom is an accomplished cybersecurity professional with over 13 years of experience. She's a data protection manager and a solution architect at Avanet in Dublin, Ireland. Beyond her technical work, she co-founded Mama Cyber Shield to help stay-at-home moms gain cybersecurity skills. She's also a mentor, speaker, and author. Of course, if she's not a mentor and a speaker, she won't be here. And she's one of the co-founder of this community also, not just the Mama Cyber Shield. She's also one of the founder of the Niger Security User Group. And also, she's an author known for making cybersecurity simple and accessible. Like her last class, I was privileged to join that class, and I saw the way she was trying to make complex stacks very easy. Like I really gained a lot from that section, and I know we are going to gain much. So she's spoken at major conferences and actively supports early career professionals through mentorship and community initiative, just like she does in Textilers community, helping young youth gain ground in the tech space. So she's going to share an insight today. And today is just part one. There will be part two next week, or maybe 2 weeks' time. There will always be part two. And we'll drop the link also for people to join. So she will be talking about configuring and managing threat protection by using Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So we have our amazing speaker in the house in the person of Madam Joy Emedom. Thank you very much, ma. You have the floor, ma.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good evening, good night, depending on where you're connecting from. Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, ma. You're audible
Okay.
enough now.
All right, thank you. I'll be sharing my screen. Please do let me know if you can see my screen by reacting with a thumbs up. Okay, once again, a very big thank you to everyone who has consistently followed us all through the year. We're trying to revive back the security user group, and it's great to see that this concept of the bi-weekly meetup has, been very helpful in bringing technology professionals together, especially for those of us who love the Microsoft technology. And so a big thank you to all of you for staying consistent, for giving us your time. Um, what we'll be learning today will be piggybacking on what was taught 2 weeks ago. So if you haven't had time to watch that video, I encourage you to spend some time to go watch the video of last week. I think it was Damilolo. So he did a good job in explaining and giving us a foundation, and sitting on top of that foundation with where I'll be taking us through. The truth is that because in the way the bi-weekly meetup is being set up, where we understand that we have diverse skill sets on the call, the approach is to try as much as possible to make it very simplified, just so that if you're a beginner, you'll be able to understand and follow through. However, if certain terminologies or explanations are not enough, that's why we have the community. Please do reach out and let's see how we can help you. The whole idea is to see that we continuously um, share our knowledge together so that we can empower each and every one of us to be able to, attain that dream career goal. The opportunity is endless, right? So there's no need hoarding. We share as much as we can. So let's do a bit of memory lane. Let's go back a bit. Let me take you back to a time, maybe early 2000s. I don't know how many of you worked with, let me rephrase. When I see lots of people who work with cloud alone, I envy them because life is much easier. So how many of you were familiar with this world back then where we had servers? And the truth is, they still exist because cloud is sitting off servers, right? But today, the guys who are involved in the whole server setup and infrastructure setup, we barely get to hear about them. But I told someone, I said, this whole cloud thing is not it's not bubble, right? It's actually a server sitting somewhere. It's just that so much attention is no more given to those set of skills versus how it used to be back in the day. So how many of you were used to that? For you to be able to say you were managing an infrastructure, providing security, you needed to visit some location and see the hardware and the servers that were installed and the applications by show of hands, or any emoji of your choice. It would be good to see those who were familiar with the then world. I remember in one of the times I was preparing, we were preparing for one of I think it was PCI DSS certification, and then we had to do file integrity monitoring deployment. And I had deployed, but so for some weird reason, I didn't pay attention to that. I had selected the deny access to the sysvol folder in the Active Directory. So for those of you who know what Active Directory is, it's an identity provider, and you will know that the sysvol folder is, I think that's where lots of your policies exist. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a particular DB file that is dev important. And what it happened was that people started getting knocked off. So the only way to fix that was to physically go to the data center and log in through the console to the server. And what seemed like we can roll back, got us 2 days in the data center. And I think people like my husband are those who like the concept of cloud, even though he doesn't understand what it means, right? But the fact that he doesn't see me having to leave the house like a casual, I'm coming, we have an issue, and the next thing he's not seeing me for 48 hours and he's wondering, have you eaten? Have you brushed your mouth? Have you had your bath? I'm sure he's one of those who, without in depth into what cloud is, he's happy that life is better for him. So it'll be good to know those who have experienced those kind of things. Share with us in the comment section. Let's get to reminisce, because sitting on top of that memory lane is where the defender for cloud would begin to show the value that it brings to us in the cloud and infrastructure. And so, looking at that, we'll do a couple of flashback as to the demand, right? So, like I said, back in the days, you look at those you have to worry about the hardware, the physical locations where the servers existed. And so statistics has shown us, right, that, there's now a demand for cloud and cybersecurity professionals with this recent surge also in artificial intelligence. When you have cloud experience and cloud security experience, there's a high demand for us in the system. And sitting on top of that is that we can also see lots of cloud misconfigurations, right? I think 15% of the breaches that are being seen in recent times are due to cloud misconfigurations. So it means that as the demand for cloud professionals come, we're seeing lots of misconfigurations. So the need to have a solution that can enable us and empower us to deliver on our job effectively as cloud security professionals also is in demand. So whether you are a cloud security analyst or an administrator or an engineer or an architect, right? The importance to have a solution that can enable you to be able to effectively manage your cloud environments and not fall into this 15% that have misconfiguration, which tends to be the one of the major um root cause for cyber breach, right? You will want to know, and that's why we're here. So some key takeaways we'll take here. We can't exhaust this topic in one day, but some key takeaways is that we'll be able to understand how to enable and configure workload protection services in Defender for Cloud. And so when we say workload, we're referring to servers, databases, and storage, keys, containers, right? We'll be able to understand the importance of Defender for Cloud in securing these workloads, and we'll do a walkthrough, right, on how to secure them. We'll be able to configure a just-in-time for Azure. I'm a bit off that. Just before the call, I've been struggling for some weird reason. I was trying to create a VM on one of my demo tenants and it's having issues. So if we might not be able to do that, I'll just explain the concept, but I'd have loved to just do like a proper display of that. And we'll show how to activate Defender for Cloud to enhance data security. Now, you agree with me? Data. Can I go on? You agree with me? Data. We can't exhaust the importance of data now, especially because data is what's driving AI. So we'll see how Defender for Cloud can help us, to enhance data security and AI threat protection. And we'll extend this to understand how with the Defender for Cloud, you can begin to include it into your DevOps. One thing that I like about the Defender for Cloud app is that, again, like I said, it can show you across board where you fit into. Even if you're even a governance, risk, and compliance person, you will see the how this tool can enable and empower you. I wouldn't spend time talking about myself. Um, is Emmanuel has done a good job. Thank you very much. I I I started my career too as a front desk in a tech company, and I loved technology. And since then, I've configured. Back in days, I used to go to Tigba and buy hard drives and swap them and RAMs and done all of that till um up until now, where I'm more like a solutions and security architect. And then I love to teach because I back in the school days, I used to feel like people who knew things didn't like to teach. So I like to teach because I always believe that one, the more you teach, the more you know, the more you read, especially in this world where technology changes all the time. So if you don't read, if you're not impacting people, then the truth is that you need something to motivate you to keep to be on top. So I like to teach and I like to make things easy for people. I don't believe that people should have things as hard as you would have had them. A couple of key points about me. I've written two books. Okay, I just wrote the third one and I'm trying to put that. You will see me fluctuate around cybersecurity, career, and online child safety. Why? Because I'm a mom in the tech space and I see the demand for technology in parenting and how much there's a huge gap in parents understanding how to parent in this digital space. So I do a lot of stuff around, online child safety as I speak into career. Recently delving deep dive into AI because like I said, whether you like it or not, one free job tip or relevance tip I will give you in the course of your career is that if you want to find yourself growing continuously in your career, always make sure that you stay in tune with what is in demand. People are not looking for generalists, right? People always look for subject matter experts. So always ask yourself, how am I going to stand out in this pathway? Because there's a space for all of us, but there's a space for the few who want to stand out. So one of the things that has helped me in my career that I've grown is I always know how to find what's the next thing and tune myself. And whether I like it or not now, almost every organization is trying to infuse artificial intelligence. So as a security person, I'm saying, how do I bring security um, um, relevance as an architect into the security space or into the tech space or into business space or into educational space. And so that's where I've been putting so much of my energy in recent times. So we're here today to look at um, Defender for Cloud, and we will piggyback over what's happening. My mouse is not moving. 1 minute. Sorry. My mouse. Hello, can you still hear me? Okay, my system seemed to have frozen.
Yes,
Sorry about. All right, my system froze. Um, sorry, I don't know. Just give me a few minutes. My system is freezing, so it's moving. I've been clicking, and so it's moving all at once. Okay, so while the system is trying to get stable, I would like anybody to share. Has anybody used Microsoft Defender for cloud apps? And can you just share what you currently use it for while we give the system some time to get back itself?
Your voice was breaking.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's I said that while I'm because I was clicking and my system wasn't moving, now it's trying to move everything at once. So I'm trying to just wait it out for like 2, 3 minutes. So while we're waiting it out, I'm saying, has anybody here used Microsoft Defender for cloud? And if yes, what have you used it for while the system is moving and we're nobody has used Microsoft Defender for cloud. That's fine, okay? So again, it helps me know how the audience is so I can know how to address. Um, Security this is not always something's wrong. Something's wrong. My system is just moving without security is they say is always excessive until it's not enough. And if you get what I'm saying, have you had many times you've tried to talk to somebody about infusing security and what they do? And share with me one of your in the chat, one of your strongest, one of the people that I find very difficult in getting them to understand security is software people. Ex Lots of software people would resist security even before security by design began to become a requirement because of regulation. Developers struggle to infuse security in what they do, right? And so people will say, oh, this security is too much, it's invasive, but until it's not enough. And what do we mean by not enough? Until you begin to have those incidents and those cyber breaches, then people begin to say, "Oh, I thought we could have. Why didn't we do this? We could have prevented this." And that's where Defender for Cloud comes, right? Since you're moving all your workloads to the cloud, right, you want to be able to gain insights and visibility into these workloads, how you can secure them. You want to be able to make sure that you have enough security at different layer, and that's where the Defender for Cloud app comes in. A quick rundown into what we learned last week. We did a high level of what Defender for Cloud was, right? It will help you protect your cloud workloads, and the good thing with Defender for Cloud is that it works across multi-cloud platforms. So what does multi-cloud platform mean? It means that Defender for Cloud is Microsoft's own product. However, it can work with you integrating it with AWS, with Google Cloud and other, even your on-prem data center, right? It can help you unify and secure your DevOps. So now, again, like I said, application people are one of the most difficult people to accept security. And so now from the development to operationalization of an application, you can infuse security in it all the way, right? Using a Microsoft Defender for Cloud, because now you can integrate it with GitHub, with your CI/CD pipelines and XYZ, right? And then at the end of the day, what this will bring for you is that you'll be strengthening your security posture, right? And once your security posture is strengthened, then there's less chance of having a cyber breach or less chance of being compromised because now you can quickly detect and respond and remediate issues. So looking at a quick grab, we looked at how to identify and remediate security risks. So the facilitator last week took us through a round overview of how to identify, showing us through the secure score dashboard, right? We looked at inventory. He explained on, compliance, frameworks around using Microsoft Defender for Cloud. He talked about how to manage compliance standards, right, using Defender for Cloud, how you can add some of these custom standards, right, to the Defender for Cloud. So I know that in one of his when he was speaking, he talked about he won't be able to show hands-on. So during the walkthrough, I will try to just show us a hands-on on how we can add, standards and how we can, include standards to the Defender for Cloud against our workloads. He also explained to us that we can connect this again, like I said, to multi-cloud environments, to our on-prem environments, and how we can extend this to the external attack surface management just so that we can look beyond um the surface. We can look into communications, into network, have a deep dive attack surface, you know, insights into these workloads. So moving forward, right, before you start Defender for Cloud, the first thing you want to do is say, do you have the right permissions? Just turning up your portal does Azure does not automatically give you the access to be able to set up Defender for Cloud or to be able to use it. So there are two types of people. There will be the people who need to configure the Defender for Cloud, configure the different configuration settings, and then there are the people who will need to read and consume, some of these services. So two important roles that you will need will be the security admin or the security reader. So for example, if you're in the governance, risk and compliance side, right? Imagine back in the days when we used to do certifications. I haven't done lots of organization certifications in a while. Like I said, technology evolves. You just find yourself in one side. So then I used to be heavily involved in PCI DSS for financial institutions, right? And one of the first things we used to do was to be able to identify and agree on what was the assets that were in coverage. If we have any governance risk person on the call, please, help educate me. Is that still the approach? So if you go to an organization, for example, that wanted to do, even if it's ISO or PCI DSS, you will first agree on the assets that fall within that scope of work. And so imagine in the cloud environment, if you had identified, you wanted to make sure that you don't want to rely. So back then they will have to come to us and say, oh, show me evidence that you had encryption on this. Show me evidence that there's password complexity and all of that. Using the Defender for Cloud now, you can identify the standards and then match the standards to those workloads, right? Which will probably be in a resource group because they'll be segmented, right? And then you can now see if they match the PCI DSS requirement. I feel like life is way much easier than it used to be before. Right, so you want permission. So you either have a security admin or a security reader permission at the tenant level to be able to start to configure or use the Defender for Cloud. Bear with me today, my system is really acting. I click and it takes a while. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to set up the environment, right? You want to set up the environment. And the first thing in setting up the environment, you want to connect it to either your Azure subscription or your AWS or your Google Cloud or any other additional environment. So the next thing is set up, right? So we're looking at Microsoft Azure setting up, but if you have an AWS, I like that AWS gives free plan. You could also simulate, adding this to an AWS plan and see what it's like. If we have time, we can do. I've never done it, so I like to do real life hands-on where we troubleshoot things, like so that it's not a case of everything has been prepped. So if we have time, we could look at, I have a AWS and we could see what it takes to integrate it. If not, we can take that home as a project task to do, and we could showcase it on any of our platforms as uh, use case learning. Now, after you have integrated the environment, what's the next thing you want to do? You want to look at the plans. Now, why am I taking time to explain this? Before we get into the workloads and understand what they need to do, these are called prerequisites, right? You don't just jump in to say, oh, I want to secure this. The Defender for Cloud needs to be set up. That's why I'm taking us through these prerequisites before we start to look at the different Defender for different workloads and the value that they bring. So, at this point, when you configure the environment, you want to select plans, right? What plans you want. Best practice is to turn on the plans at the tenant level, and then you can go back and edit and switch off the ones that you don't want, right? Just so that at the tenant level, you make these configuration changes. And so two key things you want to do and pay attention to when you're turning on is that we have the foundation CSP, and CSPN is Cloud Security Posture Management. So there's the free version that gives you these three functionalities, and then there is the paid version that gives you the full Defender for Cloud Security Posture Management, right? So you want to understand the cost implications and bear that in mind as you roll this out in your organization, right? But when you're turning it on, once you have added the environment and you are turning on the plans. These are the two options you have. Again, you can turn on everything and only turn, and then go back and turn off what you don't need at that instance. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and the moderator would bring it to my attention, or you can use the Q&A section, right, so that we can answer the questions as we go along, and allow you stick to understanding where we are. Now, once you have turned on your plan, then you want to now look at the workloads, right? So there are different workloads, and that's where we'll be focusing today. We won't be able to cover all the workloads today, but we'll look at least 3 or 4 of them, and their functions and the value that they bring, right? So there are different workload services. There's and when you go back to the settings, you'll see the different workload services: server, storage, API, container, database, right? AI, right? Key vault. You see these different workload services, and you can turn them on, and you can turn them off, because remember, you've turned them on. So let's start and dive into one. So the first workload we want to look at would be the Defender for servers, right? So once you come to the Defender for servers, you will see the page. There's the plan 1 and there's the plan 2, right? Again, plan 2 gives you more things. You see more configurations in the plan 2. You see things like, sorry, agentless VM vulnerability scanning, agentless VM search scanning. Um, you see things like agentless malware detection, just-in-time VM access, baseline assessment, file integrity monitoring. I just gave you an example of, back in days, PCI DSS would insist for a film to be in your card, in your card estate. So your asset that was responsible for card management needs to have a file integrity monitoring on it. So what this is showing is that, when you turn on Defender for Cloud Apps, you can get that functionality on it. So imagine where you turn on the PCI DSS template, right, on Defender for Clouds to your resource group that is for card related things. It can tell you if there's a theme configured and if there's no theme, and you just answer as a auditor, or and without wasting time. And even as a security engineer, you can see what to fix and what to remediate even before a non-conformity report is given to you. Okay. So this is what Defender for server would give us from a functionality perspective. And from a customization side, we can go in, like I said, and we can turn off. So even if you have gotten some settings from the plan 2, you can still come and turn them on and off. So somebody might say, I don't want antivirus, right? Endpoint protection. We want to still use our own non-Microsoft antivirus. So you can come here and turn this off. We want to use a different theme solution, can come here and turn this off, right? And still use. So you have the ability to still customize these configurations, and choose to turn on or off what you don't require. Guys, I just wanted to know, is this beginning to cause us, create some curiosity in our thoughts? And if yes, what kind of curiosity is this already opening up for you as you begin to see what you can do with Defender for Cloud Apps? All right. Um, so one use case you will see in Defender for Cloud, I'm sorry, Defender for Clouds. I'm sorry, not Defender for Cloud Apps. Let me not mix it. One key use case you will see in Defender for Clouds is the just in time, right? What does the just in time do for you? When you create a virtual machine, I want to presume that if you've had any reason to create a virtual machine in the cloud, um, remember, anything on the cloud means that it has internet access. The default setting that you would have would be to make that asset accessible over the internet, except you explicitly turn it off, or if you turn it on, you do specific inbound firewall connection. But the default configuration is to enable access to that server. So whether it is a Windows server on port 3389 or in a Linux server on port 22 using your SSH, you will turn that on over the internet. And you agree with me that that's already a risk. Am I right? Uh, and who wants to tell me why that is a risk to have port 3389 or port 22 open over the internet? Who wants to share with us why that is a risk? Okay, this is not a speech. This is a meetup, meaning that we're
Okay.
brainstorming together and we're learning together. So
Yeah.
it would be
Mm,
encouraging to have you
okay, to
participate.
expose. Okay, let me try. Let me try. It will expose your tenant or your to attack. Expose your tenant when you turn it off. It's able to. If you turn it on, to expose your tenant to attack. That to be your VM to attack. Expose
Okay,
them unable to attack. If you turn it off on.
thank you very much. Who is that? That's Busayo. Thank you very much. Yeah, Daniel, do you want to go?
So just to add to Bisole's submission, so basically the 3389 is the port that opens to your database connection. And specifically, I think MySQL or Postgres, one of them. No, MySQL, sorry. And so you don't want to expose your database to the outside world, okay? Or leave it, they just leave it ajar. And for the port 22 is basically about your the port that leads to getting access to a particular server within a secured connection or a secure channel path. So you don't want them to be um, left ajar. So you make sure that you protect them in making sure that you are free from attacks. If I'm right.
Okay. So thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you. Busayo. Okay, there's one more person. All right, Emmanuel, you want to go? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my own little suggestion is just to me, port 3389, which is RDP port, is well known by everybody to be the port for RDP. So exposing it can increase the attack surface, whereby people can try to attack your servers, like using brute force. So to me, just in time helps to avoid that, because even if you need to enable for 3389, you can just enable it for just a particular period of time. And after that period, you can just disable it. That's if need be that you must enable it. That's just my little addition that the reason.
Thank you very much. I will take the last person for this question, which is there's somebody's hand that is still up. Yeah, there's someone else. Your hand is up. Sorry, my system is hanging, so I can't click. Rashid. Yeah, I'll take Rashid
Yeah,
and we'll move on. Yeah.
good afternoon. So for the ports, you enabling your port 33, that's an RDP port. So that means they can actually RDP into your server publicly if you actually enabled it.
All right.
So that's my little contribution to it.
Thank you very much. So you see, guys,
Thank you.
it's good when we discuss. So first of all, I will address Daniel. So Daniel, port 3389 is not an SQL port. Yeah? The default SQL port is 1439. Okay,
Yeah,
just to correct that. Yeah.
I
Um,
made a mistake.
yeah, I know
Sorry.
sometimes when we are put on the spot, we can tend to mix up things, so it's okay. But because it's recorded and people will watch, just so that it's not presumed like we didn't address it. So it's port 3389 is your remote desktop protocol port that is used to make a remote connection to a Windows server or a Windows system, while port 22 is your SSH port, secure shell port that is used to connect to a bare metal system. So typically your what you call your Linux or your Red Hat systems, right? So they are management ports, meaning that the moment somebody has access to them, the person can come in as an admin and administer that, that's whatever service is there. So what does that tell you? It tells you that you need to secure it, right? So if you make it accessible over the internet, right, it means that anybody who can exploit whatever form of vulnerability exists on that your endpoint already has internet connection to that port, because remember, your firewall is not filtering anything. Your firewall has said any to that port, right? And the moment the firewall is saying any, that's already like Emmanuel said, you have increased your attack surface. So imagine an environment where you have different people who have access to provision resources on your cloud environment, right? Because cloud engineers cloud application people would make requests, whatever process the organization have, they will chunk it up. Now, you as the cloud security person, you don't want to hamper, right, productivity, remember, but at the same time, you want to ensure that security is enforced. So with Defender for cloud for servers, one of the value that it can bring is that it can scan your environment and it can say you have these servers that you have turned on port 3389 and port 22. You have enabled it open over the internet. I don't know why you have done it though, but what I'm saying is that you need to turn it off and allow that access to that port only when needed. And that's where the just in time. And so what it will do is to automatically take those servers and place them on the dashboard under what it calls unhealthy resources, right? And when it places them as unhealthy resources, right, then what you can do is to now see how to remediate them. So as a cloud security person, whether you're a cloud analyst that has to spool reports, you can spool that report, and then based off that report, people can engage the team to first of all even find out that do they even really need it, right? Maybe they don't need that permission, they just turned it on because it's a default setting. And then if you validate, oh, we need it, do they need it all the time? Do they connect to the server all the time? And then just the same way we have privilege identity management where we pin our roles when we need them, right? They can then turn it and say whenever you need it, right, then you can make a request. It will give you, so what it does is that it will give you a specific RDP connection that is timed, that can only initiate one connection. So the moment you click on it and make that connection, only you can connect. If another person comes and wants to RDP, the person has to get their own secure RDP connection to that server, right? So, and then because you have enabled just in time, you're now going to grant access to only the people that need that just in time. So that's where that configuration comes. So you can see how Defender for Cloud has brought in a security layer for you, seamlessly just because you turned it on. So first of all, it gives you the visibility and insight that, oh, this configuration exists though. And then it now tells you these are some ways you can fix it. And then you can now track who can fix it versus you just sit down blindsided and then you're worrying about, you have to manually checking through different servers to check their config, check if it was configured, which is typically how audit used to happen. So imagine auditors, back in the days, I know that that's how the guys who used to audit in the banking system will come with one long checklist. And when they come to me, I'm so irritated because you come to audit me, but I'm the one having to tell you where my gaps are. So now with tools like Defender for Cloud, they don't need you. They don't need to. They can spool the report and see where the gaps are, and potential or possible remediations and recommendations. So just in time is one very good use case of the value add that Defender for Cloud brings to the server environment. And like I explained, what will it do for you? It will give you that opportunity to be able to open that management port only when needed, right? And prevent the potential breach. So what's the logic behind this, right? The logic that he uses, the Defender for Cloud, to do this is that it first of all would check, oh, you have a VM, right? It will now say it does just in time enabled. If your answer is no, then it's going to ask, do you even have a network security group? Because it's possible you just have a VM that probably you didn't add a network security group to it, right? And then it would now say, oh yes, there's a network security group. Now, because there's a network security group, it means that IP has been assigned, right? And so it's going to now ask that, is there firewall? And is that firewall protected? Does that firewall have an allow for those ports? And the moment the response is yes, it automatically classifies that asset as unhealthy. Versus when it would ask is, oh, this is a virtual machine, this is a server, right? But does the server have a network group? No. Then it says it's healthy. Or it has a network group and it has the firewall permission, but it doesn't have 22, 3389, 5895, and 596. I think those are radius and ports. It doesn't have them turned on. So what does it do? It puts it as green. But if he says he has it turned on, then he puts it on healthy so that you can go and ensure that you turn on just in time. And the good thing is that, like we said, it's a multi-cloud. So this same logic applies to an EC2 instance. So if AWS is not your thing, when you talk of virtual machines in Azure, we talk of EC2 instance in AWS. They are the same thing, just different naming conventions, nomenclature rather. Okay, all right. My system chose to do this today. All right, I'm waiting for it to click. So we'll move on and we'll look at Defender for storage, right? So we've looked at how one value add that Defender for Cloud will bring for us in the in Defender for Server, and there are so many. Somebody says someone else took Emmanuel. Someone took control. Are you the one? Emmanuel, can you find out who is taking control, please? Hope we don't have rogue people on the call.
See, Fasasi,
So let me just start it.
Sorry, what happened?
You took control of the screen, please. Can
yeah,
you
you took control of the screen.
Yeah, stop control, please.
Oh, sorry, let me just, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know what I said.
All right, I'll share
Okay.
again.
Let me just,
I've
is it
stopped
okay?
it now.
Okay,
You can go ahead now.
sorry.
I've stopped it.
Sorry, I don't know what I click on my laptop.
You
No, that's
spotlight
fine.
yourself.
It's just for security purpose. I wanted to be sure we don't have a rogue person on the call.
Okay, no problem.
All right. Exactly, kudos. That was why I flagged it for the coordinator. I just wanted to be sure that we didn't have a security breach in our bi-weekly call.
No, not at all.
That's fine. All right. Yes, so as security people, we have to be extra careful. You see anything, you're always very sensitive and paranoid. When my screen is popping up, I'll just tell a story about how being a security person almost made me and my husband quarrel. So you know how they say check your phones. I used to work for an investigation project, and my phone is what I use. And so because when I'm in the office, you could leave your phone on your desk and all that. So I put passwords on my phone. And imagine being married. We just got married, and when we got married, I wasn't in security per se, right? So as I transitioned and got to security, I want to change, I want to perform. So when I'm doing certain things, I'll change the password. So imagine when your husband knows your password and then comes to know you've changed your password and you didn't tell him. In the world of today, you know what that is. He automatically sends red flag like I'm cheating, right? So it took my husband a lot to accept that. Okay, my wife's job by default would make her. I'll take note of it now. Yeah, come. It took my husband a while, right? We're going to 11 years in marriage, so you can imagine as young couples then, how my husband had to get used to the fact that I had a weird kind of job and being in forensic, lots of sensitive calls, lots of coded things, and because I'm very disciplined to my job, I wouldn't even share some of those things with him. So it was a struggle for him. So if you're in security and you're going into forensic, just bear in mind that it will shake your marriage a bit. So you need to prep your partner's mind on what the job is. I had to start educating my husband to a point. The one of changing passwords was one that he struggled with for years. He just picks your phone and the next thing your password is and you're like, oh sorry, I was doing something, I had to wipe my device and so I changed my password. All right, so moving on. Yeah. So we look at, and there's so much that Defender for Server can do, right? I just wanted to call out that one use case because it's so relatable. People create virtual machines in the cloud every time, and just by default, that setting is turned on and they never switch it off, right? So if as a security person, so if you evolve into becoming a security architect, right, one of the things you would do when you're putting like a configuration baseline would be things like, okay, are we going to access this from our internal network? Is this a server that's going to be accessed from internal? I'll give an example. There was a time a banking industry wanted to put we're trying to show them data center optimization by moving into Azure. And our recommendation was to move certain of their workloads off the DMZ in the infrastructure into the cloud, because we're like, if it's in the public DMZ, it's as good as being on the internet. And if you don't understand what that means from technical, I'll explain to you. So the public DMZ is like that place in your network segment that you have said people need to come to us from the internet. So let they hit this place first. So it has lesser security than your internal network. So for us, we're like, if you have 200 servers in your public DMZ, it's as good as moving those guys to Azure, where you can optimize usage and all that. It's a whole big project, but we were able to show them how to drive cost, and they did drive cost, huge amount of cost down, even from an operationalization perspective and skill set and all of that. But some of those workloads, when we move them to the cloud, it didn't necessarily require. So, for example, you know how you have the app web DB, right? So their database stayed within the network, but the app and the web were moved to the cloud. So the app, for example, did not need to be accessed from the internet. So that app on the firewall, we had to configure, it can only be talked to by the IP of so thing. So, but because it's a VM set up on the cloud, by default, a cloud engineer can have an oversight, right? And then configure it with port 3389 open. Now, when you begin to look at things like Azure policy and the rest, right, deep down, you see the importance of having those kind of policies that by default, it will say any VM being provisioned with Windows, deny or block this port. You can do all of that. But Defender for Cloud would give you that visibility across your whole cloud estate, and you get that insight. So moving on to Defender for Storage, again, you know that when you provision, whether it is server or databases, you're feeding into a storage, right? And that storage is where data is being written into. So you also want to gain visibility. Again, some of the functionalities that you get when you turn on Defender for Cloud will be things like continuous analysis of the data and control pane. So whether it's Azure Blob, whether it's lakes, data lake storage, whether it's Azure files, it will continuously scan them. You will see things like malicious file upload scan. So for those who do Power Apps development, right, and need to talk to a blob storage or somewhere, and maybe you're creating a low code app that does maybe HR something, and people need to upload. How do you ensure that people are not uploading a malicious file that will come into your tenant and infect you? So that's where the Microsoft Defender for Storage comes in. So you can infuse Microsoft Defender for Storage as part of the architecture for a Power Apps deployment that would have a Azure Blob Storage where people upload things so that it can scan. So one of the things it does, it can detect malicious file and that is uploaded and in real time. So I don't know if any of you have tried to, I see it a lot when you're applying for visas, right? If you're uploading, there are certain files you upload and it will tell you that this file has a malicious, well, again, when I do certain attack simulations, I see it. So mostly around the what they call it, visa application portals, right? They have that. Their portals have the ability to detect that your app is malicious and will not allow it upload. So Defender for Storage can give you that functionality. Yeah. So somebody might say, how is this relevant? There's a recent attack that happened recently that talked about a software firm that just deployed it was like a recruiting agency or so, without much details, and they requested for people to upload their CVs. And you know that those portals will have name, email, and then your CV will have name, email. Some people even put their phone number. Some people even put their pictures. Some people put their marital status. Different ways that people apply for jobs, right? Now they used an Azure blob container and they left it. It was misconfigured where it could be accessed from the internet. So hackers were able to compromise and gain access, and over 26 million CVs were extracted from there and people's data exposed. So if you begin to sit down and say, how relevant is my job? Trust me, your job is relevant across different industries. You might be where might seem to be limiting you now, but whenever you learn security, learn it and encompass your thought process. So imagine a simple recruiting. I'm sure when they were telling the developer guys, right, to infuse security. Remember that thing where they feel security is too much, security is stressful. All we just want is not a portal that they will just upload their CV. What is the worst that can happen? They were not thinking beyond, if somebody has access to the storage and has access to people's data, what can he do? So you can imagine how much people's email have been exploited, and phishing emails now using AI, right? People can fish. Imagine extracting all those CVs, upload it into an AI model, right? And just tell the AI model, extract all the email addresses for me and put it into this phishing app, and then boom, you send phishing alerts, right? And those phishing alerts, imagine it capturing, you have been successfully selected for this job. Kindly click to complete your onboarding. Boom. You see how they say younger they sleep, trouble, go wake up. Share you dey find job, you don't expose yourself to problem. So that's a typical, how when security is not considered during things like as little as, HR saying, I want to recruit. You look at it, they don't bring security. I see many people try to do projects and security is an afterthought, right? It's only when the bridge has happened, they begin to say, where was security? How could security could have been involved? As little as a CV expert. And in recent times, we're seeing this happen over and over again. S3 buckets, Azure Blob Storage, all these locations that can be used for quick file upload and data uploads. People are not looking at the security around it, right? So that's what things like Defender for Storage would do for you when you turn on the Microsoft Defender for Cloud and turn on the Defender for Storage. It would automatically scan all your storage assets and call out places that have this ability, and by default give you this functionality if you turn on the malware scanning capability. So how will it do it? When files are being uploaded, right, a user would access an app and then the user will scan. To the user doesn't know anything like storage, right? A user doesn't know what is storage. The user just clicks on an app, right, and is clicking on upload. That's what a typical user does. What the Defender for Cloud app would be doing would be, as user is uploading, like I said, scan, and automatically detect and remove automatically if there's any. And then you have the ability to also detect sensitive data, right? And when we move into the data sensitivity and data security part, you will see how you can even configure data sensitivity labels, leverage on your purview, and integrate into Defender for Cloud. All right, so we move on to container. So now we've seen a server, typical server scenario, right? And how we have a use case of where we will turn on servers with port 3389 and Defender for Cloud can show us, and we can, close those gaps. We've seen a typical case of using storage locations that have misconfigurations, and people can exploit them by uploading malicious file. And Defender for Cloud, Cloud can scan those locations and automatically detect and remove, so remediate immediately. Now let's look at containers. Application people like containers, right? So this was one area of technology that I'm still learning. When we started moving away from servers, there are certain scenarios or certain applications you prefer to use containerization. It took me a while to even understand the concept of this, right? And so container is something that has grown in the use of app deployment, right? And so you can imagine the importance of gaining that level of security visibility into it. Excuse me. So some of the things that it can do is it can identify misconfiguration. It can do vulnerability assessment and scan. So that containerization, you're going to have things like, application images, application images that are being used, right, that are being used for the app that was being developed. So when you turn on Defender for Cloud, it can do certain investigations. It can check real-time threat protection for one node or a cluster. It can check for vulnerabilities that exist, right, in the container. It can check for misconfigurations. And you can customize it. So when you turn this on, you can choose to say that, oh, I don't want certain functionalities that exist on it. There are certain functionalities you can turn off, and there are certain ones you can turn on. Again, the beauty of that is you can decide to grow with this. You can choose to turn on certain things like key management, keywords, and then other ones you can turn off, and then as you grow. Why that screenshot is blur. Now let's look at one potential, an attack. So there are two attacks that we've seen that has happened due to container misconfiguration. One is the TLS blob stack attack, and then there's another one that was a cluster that happened that was compromised, and he allowed the company to be able to use the cluster to start doing data mining. So again, why this reference? This is to show you that there's that possibility for people to have misconfiguration. So just the way in virtual machines, right, and whether Linux or Windows, right, you can expose the management console. It's the same way in containerization. You can expose certain files that can, create an attack, open you up for an attack. So a typical attack technique that is used in container would be where they would see a potential or a vulnerable image or a vulnerable application, right? And then they would initiate an access. And once they've been able to gain access to the application, they use it to deploy a backdoor that gives them access to your host. And once they've landed on your host, then they will elevate their own credentials. And then based on their elevated credentials, then they will start to do bilateral movements across to find, other assets or any other thing that you are connecting. So containers will probably have connection strings that they connect to maybe a database and all of that. And once they're able to gain all those access, then they begin to use you to either do a digital currency mining. This is typical the case that you will see here. The threat flow would always be a compromised account, right? So due to vulnerability, once they've compromised the account, then they will land on your image that you have misconfigured. And then once they come on your image that you've misconfigured, then they get into that environment, right? And once they go into the environment, they now come at the app level, and then they also elevate their credentials and begin to have unauthorized access at your node level. So as a cloud security architect or cloud security engineer or cloud security analyst, you want to gain visibility into this type of misconfiguration. Now, you don't need to know how Kubernetes work. You don't need to know how all these ACKS clusters work, right? But you need to ensure that the guys have configured the right thing. This is where Microsoft Defender for Cloud comes for you. It can be able to tell you at which layer. Is it at the node level? Is it at the data plane level? Is it at the control plane level, right? Is that where this vulnerability exists, and is that where this misconfiguration exists that can create a potential exploit? And so Defender for Container will help you defend against, wrong policy configuration. It will provide you with runtime protection. It would help you do discovery where you can see, roles that have been assigned, and be able to help you and provide automated response, right? Even without you understanding what Kubernetes are, understanding what ACS clusters are, I still struggle to understand what those things are. All right. Now let's move a bit higher to data sensitivity. You know that everything we're dealing today is data. Do a quick step back to the example of the storage that was compromised and the CVs that were exploited, right? Again, it means that that organization also did not classify their data. It means that to them, they did not see those data as sensitive data. It means that whatever regulatory body that organization falls on, that they are not honoring it, because from a GDPR perspective, there are those things. You have lots of PII that were included in data that were exploited. So you can imagine the data sensitivity exposure that breach brought. And that's where you can leverage on Defender for Cloud to turn on what we call the data sensitivity. Now, by default, there are sensitive information types that Microsoft has already embedded around things like finance, PII, and the rest, right? So you can, again, edit them, customize them, or you can go to your Microsoft Purview and create your own sensitive information types that you can now come here to Defender for Cloud and add. So if we take back that project, right, and say if that project team brought security into their conversation and said, we want to roll out a recruitment app and we want to host it on Azure. As the cloud security architect, your questions would be, whoever is doing the design, right? Maybe the cloud engineer will come up with the design to say, this is the architectural design. And as a cloud security person, you'll be looking at that design to look at the security elements. So, they want to use a storage. Your question around it will be, what security access control models do they have around the storage? What network control models do they have around the storage? They would say that they want to they will say that they are going to be collecting XYZ data, right? You as a cloud security architect will be saying that this data, what category do they fall under, right? We are governed by ISO 27001, or we are governed by NIST, right? Or we are governed by GDPR because we fall under the GDPR ecosystem. Okay, this data, we need these labels. And you can say, okay, do we have this kind of labels existing? No. So part of your project deliverables will now be that, we need to create data labels, right? And these data labels need to be added. We need to turn on Defender for Cloud, whether it is a container, whether it is a database, whether it is an app, you need to turn it so that these labels will be used to match this storage, right? Where this data is going to be kept so that we can know, so that whatever action it is. So for example, if the action is that do not copy this data out or do not download this. So even if those hackers were able to compromise, they wouldn't have been able to take out the data because the sensitivity label that would have been binded on those data would have a sensitivity policy that probably would say you can't download or you can't copy out, and that would have restricted them further than, so while at one level they were able to come in, at another level they would have been restricted. So you see the importance of security across board. So it will be able to help you detect sensitive data and credential leakage. In the event where there's credential leakage, it will be able to help you analyze again the data pane or the control pane. And then the good thing about the Defender for AI is that sits of data is that where lots of people are building AI applications. Again, like I said, the beauty about AI is data. So when people say AI will take our jobs, AI will do this, what I say to them, I say, no, AI is just changing the way you do jobs, right? Because for AI to be as functional as it is, AI feeds on data. So for example, I put in an image, I put in a prompt and I tell AI to create an image. The ability for AI to be able to know how to create that image is because there is a graphic designer that works with the team. I bet you do your research that works with, for example, ChatGPT and has helped them with coming up with the logic around creation of applications. So if you were focused more on just knowing how to use an app to design, you probably want to focus now on how to use prompting to come up with those designs, because your ability to interpret a design and tell CorelDRAW or tell Adobe Creative to create it is the same way we're saying interpret it and come up with a prompting that I can put and tell ChatGPT to create it or the Adobe AI to create it. So everything is heavy on data, right? So it means that your prompting can become your value add, right? That can become your IP for your organization, and you want to those prompts keep them secured somewhere. Probably people don't take them. I'm just giving a random example. Take them, and copy and use them places. So when you are building AI models, you want to put sensitivity labels behind it, put data sensitivity labels, behind those AI models. And that's where Defender for Cloud can help you. Once you have an AI infrastructure set up, again, as the guys are thinking, we want to develop this app, it needs AI. You should be saying, we're going to put Defender for Cloud for AI so that we can see, what's happening, what type of prompts are people using. How many of you remember the case where somebody prompted ChatGPT to create an international passport, for XYZ, and ChatGPT did it, and then the person, tweeted about it, and when next people went, it wasn't working again because, that was flagged, and ChatGPT went and fixed it. Now, for me, what was missing there was they didn't have something that was prompting them, when people were putting malicious prompts, right? Now, I think if you go to ChatGPT, it has improved around when people are coming to do reverse engineering with ChatGPT to get it on the reverse to provide malicious output for them. And those are where Defender for AI would play value for us. My system is really acting up. So what do you do with Defender for AI? You can enable it to monitor your prompts. You can enable it to monitor your AI interactions, right? And it will feed all of this into the dashboard, right? It can detect vulnerabilities and threats. Again, it can tell you that in this your AI application, there's lots of data leakage, lots of data manipulation that's happening, and in your AI infrastructure and your AI workload. It can tell you that it can collect prompts and provide them as evidence, AI interactions, right? And use them to throw triggers and alerts for you. So the Defender for Cloud AI can monitor, generative AI threats in real time, right? So when you plug this again behind open AI solutions or generative AI solutions, it can tell you where people are throwing, data poisoning, where people are trying to do credential theft, where people are trying to jailbreak. It can detect all these malicious activities when people are trying to use your AI solution and trigger, an alert on the dashboard for you. For me, why I like this is, and I'll tell you why, especially as somebody who started pushing into AI security. I told somebody, I said, one of the good things that Microsoft has done, you don't need to know something so well to start using it. And like I said, imagine you sit in an organization that is talking around developing AI solutions, right? And you might not have in-depth understanding into design and architecture. And so they will sit in the team and they will say, oh, we're going to use XYZ database, we're going to do this kind of data modeling and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to host it on, on Azure, or we're going to host it on AWS, right? Now you know that with Defender for Cloud, you don't need to kill yourself. You can say, can we include in the budget, right? The cost of Defender for Cloud, because with Defender for Cloud, we'll be able to gain visibility into XYZ, right? And our security will be able to say where the gaps exist and what we can, close. And when they are in their development or test phase, right, you can turn this on and you'll be able to see the gaps that exist and provide that recommendation. So you see, and in that way, you now learn, because Defender for Cloud will now, for example, flag and say, oh, this AI language model, this app is prone to data poisoning using XYZ. And you can, based on the recommendation, do your own research and do a workshop for your organization and present. So you see, it's like learning back forward. So you don't have to say, oh, I don't know anything about AI, right? Meanwhile, in your organization, you're hearing them talk so much about AI products, AI this, and you just sit at security. How do you stay relevant? If you use Azure, this is a good time for you to step up, and say, this solution can provide this for us, this solution can provide this. Let them include it in the budget that they are getting for the app, so that you can have that access to this and now leverage on the recommendation dashboard to upskill yourself, because it will tell you where the gaps are and then tell you how to remediate it, and you can now read and become more equipped, rather than isolate yourself and say, I don't know anything about AI, or this whole AI thing is stressful, I don't understand it. Is it making some sense to somebody? Yeah. So the Microsoft Defender for Cloud can also give you some insights, right, into your end user usage, right? Right. So for example, it can block and prioritize using certain IPs, certain identity, certain application details. It can help you improve on triage, which meaning that if there's a potential trigger, maybe for example, in this example, it says that there was a jailbreak attempt on your Azure Open AI model. So somebody was trying to jailbreak your Open AI model, right? it will tell you, it will do a triage for you. So without just prompting you and telling you, it's able to show you where the person was trying. Was the person trying from external, or was the person trying from your internal network, or was the person trying from another, infrastructure on your cloud environment? It will do that triage for you without you trying to break your head to trace where was this person trying to make this jailbreak attempt, right? Because everybody constantly, even ChatGPT, go and Google it, people are constantly trying to jailbreak the language model because they want to understand, they want to hack the models. If you hack people's model and take people's model, then you can use it and leverage on top of it and create your own, leverage on the data and the investment. While for some organization, if they hack your language model, then they get access to your data and, depending on the value behind that data. Right. So it's very important that you want to protect the large language model, that sits behind your AI solution. Now let's move this into another part that I like, DevOps, application people. You can see that DevOps, was something that came up with. We used to have developers, then DevOps came, which is development operations, right? And then now we're doing DevSecOps, right? And so even in the DevSecOps, you want to see how to infuse Defender for security from the moment that they are coding. You don't want to wait after they finish coding. Then when you now scan the code, then you begin to see issue. Whether you are doing as the SAT code scanning or a DAT scanning, you start to see issue. So Defender for Cloud can allow you to integrate this into the code level. So you can integrate into GitHub, you can integrate into your Azure DevOps, you can integrate into your GitLab, Docker Hub, right? So that as they are developing in their development environment, you are not even talking about moving into test environment or UAT environment and production. From the development environment, it can begin to flag those issues and the developers can start fixing it. So for example, if they're copying frameworks and copying images across, it can begin to say, oh, this image and this framework is already flagged that it has a vulnerability before they even push it into production, right? So we can see this, and then it will flash it on the dashboard, and you'll be able to see, codes that are already scanned for you, and begin to see vulnerabilities that exist, expose secrets. So again, you will have applications that will have connection strings, right? Connection strings to XYZ location. You can see secrets and keys that are already exposed from the dev environment into production. Probably doesn't have the proper identity access management rules assigned to it. All of this can be flagged on the dashboard, and you can start to remediate rather than wait for a breach to happen and then they will say, oh, our connection string was exposed, or and so they had access to what the key that was used for encryption. For the DevSecOps, you would require permissions for this to happen, right? So remember how we had to get the security admin and reader role to be able to turn on Defender for Cloud. You need to use it. You need to require this rule. You need to look at the required permissions that you need to be able to turn this on, because this is more like an integration to another third party, right? So you will need certain permissions. During the walkthrough, I'll just show us where we can do this, but you will need certain permissions in order to be able to have this achieved. And then it has its own security posture dashboard, right? That you can use across your development operation lifecycle, right? It can identify the risk that in your CI/CD pipelines, right, and your source codes, and be able to tell you, okay, these are things that you need to actionable recommendations that you need to do to reduce this attack surface. It can even help you prioritize risk and then integrate these real-time alerts for compliance. So it has its own dashboard, the DevSecOps, that is different from the general dashboard for Defender. Again, like I said, you can connect this to your GitHub environment. If you work heavily with software developers and already from the development begin to see security gaps that exist, right? Before things are committed, before workloads are committed, it would view and scan the results before somebody would commit. So it will say, so when the person wants to commit, it will scan it before it will allow them commit, before it will validate that, okay, this line of code, right, is legit and it's not malicious or like an SQL injection and the rest. Again, it will give you a summary dashboard of everything that it has explained. So far, what have I done? I've taken us through the journey of showing us how we can use Defender for cloud, for servers. There are so many use cases as which you can use it. There is agentless scanning. There's just in time, but I showed you the just in time use cases. We've looked at the storage, looking at the breach that happened. We've seen the importance of using Defender for Cloud to detect, storage, and then we've seen how to use data sensitivity to enhance the security, around Defender for Cloud, and for Defender for AI that will tell us, potential attacks that can happen on our language models. And we've also looked at DevSecOps, DevOps, security using Defender for Cloud. We've also looked at Defender for Container, right? So there's Defender for Key Vault, there's Defender for Database. I'm looking at the time, we'll just skip into the real life environment to just do a walkthrough of how Defender for Cloud looks like. While I'm switching my screen to that, please, if there are any questions, we can start asking. Emmanuel, I think I can take questions now while I'm switching to my Azure portal.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for the fantastic presentation. Let me check if there is any question on the chat. Okay, no one. Someone just raised something that looked very question. He said, "Is Microsoft Defender for Cloud as or IaaS?" So, and someone answers that it is a software as a service. So, but there's no question for now. So, guys, you can drop your question. Somebody is asking, "Is there Defender for M365?" I guess someone is asking.
So there's the Microsoft Defender for Cloud apps, right? So the Microsoft Defender for Cloud apps is the one that helps you monitor your cloud apps, and that's where your M365 is a cloud apps. Remember your Teams, SharePoint, and all that. That's different. So the Microsoft Defender for Cloud is your cloud hosting environment, right? That sits with all these buckets: your storage, your server, your container, your vaults, your key vaults, your AI models, your data, right? So that's the difference. Sayo, I hope that answered the question. Busayo, did that answer your question?
Yeah, he replied, "Okay."
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Sorry, I don't know, my system is dragging. I'm trying to open up.
Okay, can you hear my response?
No, I just started hearing you now, but I wasn't hearing you before.
I said that there is the aspect of Microsoft 365 have the vendor. My 365 have the vendor. I'm familiar with 365 very well, so that's why I'm asking. I'm asking whether there is a vendor for my 365. You mentioned all the app. Since you have mentioned that, I'm okay with that response. Which
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
There's a difference between Defender for Cloud apps and Defender for Cloud. So I think Defender for Cloud apps is the one that addresses the M365.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Trying to pull up my screen. Just let me know when you can see my Azure portal.
Yeah, I can see your Azure portal now. Your deployment is complete.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have much on this tenant. I was trying to quickly create some virtual machines. I think it was just dragging, but I'll just take us through what it looks like. Defender for Cloud. So this is your Defender for Cloud, and the first thing you want to do would be to come to your setup, and this is where you will connect, right? So you can see I have connected Microsoft Azure. If I wanted to onboard an AWS, I will come here, Google Cloud or any other environment, and I can have more than one subscription that I want to add here. So if I wanted to add more than one subscription, I think I'll come to environment, if I'm not, and then I'll be able to add environment, right? And I'll be able to see add other environments here, right? Now, once you have added the environment, you'll be able to, this is where you can still modify what you've done. So you see the tenant root. So I have one management group, right? And one subscription here. And if I click on it, then I will see the the settings that I have. So you have the foundation CSPN, which is your cloud security posture, the one I said that comes free by default and then has settings. So if you click on details, you will see what it can give you from the free version. And then this one is $5 per month that gives you, and so you have 30 days trial. So you can turn this on and you have 30 days trial, right, to play around with it, and just make sure that you turn it off before the 30 days. But then it will allow you, explore, and within 30 days you can, explore around some of the settings. You can also come here you can see each of those plans, right? So this is where we modify the plan. So for example, if I come to servers, I can choose to turn servers off and say that I don't want Defender for Cloud on servers, right? And I have for others. And even in this Defender for servers, I can come here and enable some settings, right? So you can see some of them are on, some of them are off. You can see some of them are on and some of them are off in the Defender for servers. So you can come and say that you want to turn on vulnerability. You can see vulnerability assessment for machines. I can say I want to turn it off. I don't want to use Microsoft Defender for vulnerability. I can say I don't want antivirus. Right here, you can turn it off and on. So this is where you can customize whatever setting has been enabled on when you turned on the plan, and you can include others. 1 minute, please.
Hello, ma. If you are speaking, you are muted, ma. Can't hear you, ma.
Apologies. My toddler just woke up and I needed to get her elder sister to carry her. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is how you can come to each of the plan and make changes on each of the plan, right? And then customize it to what you want, right? So we didn't talk about, Defender for resource group. We didn't talk about Defender for key vault. We didn't talk about Defender for database, for app services. They are all here and they all come with their own value, right? You can turn them on, and again, like I said, turn them on or off, or edit them and choose some services. Defender for even APIs are here. Now, this is the one that I said that, piggybacking on the class that was taught last week around standards, right? Again, they are not turned on by default. What is turned on in your subscription by default is your Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark. So if, for example, you want Defender for Cloud Apps to use any of the compliance, right, you can come here. So this is NIST, this is CIS controls, this is Azure Foundation Benchmark, this is NIST 800 Rev, this is CSF version 2 again. So these are different, compliance frameworks, right? That if you need to adhere to, this is GDPR, all you need to do is come on and turn them on, right? And when you turn it on, right, you put whatever needs to be set, and then that's it, right? Yep. So that's it. You turn it on, and then it starts to tell you if that entity is compliant, right? You can configure email notifications again to who gets notified about any severity. Yep. Now, when you come to, this is where the inventory that is been taken. So when it scans your environment, it starts to populate this place, right? So you can see anything anything that is on the cloud, as little as even your virtual network, your IP addresses, it categorizes them as a resource, right? And you can begin to see based on the Microsoft security benchmark that I have, you can see, so, and it can even tell you the Defender for Cloud that you don't have turned on. So the inventory will scan keep everything in the inventory and tell you the ones that you have Defender for Cloud turned on. So I don't have Defender for Cloud turned on for my security stuffs, but I have it turned on for my key vaults. And you can see that is, telling me, and then putting certain recommendations, flagging. So you can begin to play. You can see it has classified some resources as unhealthy resources that I can go and remediate. Let's see what is under here. Nothing here. Then when we come to cloud security, right? So this is where you look at your security posture, where you can play around your security posture for your cloud, right? So as far as my tenant is concerned, from a security posture, my posture is 80%, again, based on my resources. And it's saying that I have 8 out of 10 unhealthy resources. This is where you click on view recommendations, and you can begin to see recommendations that the Defender for Cloud you can see is providing. So things like um, TLS should be updated to the latest version for web app. So you see this kind of thing. So you have a web app that you have deployed, and the TLS connection is obsolete, right? And we all know the vulnerabilities that exist with TLS connection. So this helps you to be able to go back to your team to say, okay, now maybe because this is medium, you might, from prioritization, people might not prioritize it, right? But just giving you an example of what it looks like, right? We have also medium 1, low 7, and maybe that's why, even though I have a high number of unhealthy, because they are categorized as medium and low, my posture is still a bit high. If you get what I mean. So my posture was 80. I was even concerned, like, okay, how do I have? But because I don't have any critical and high risk, right? So my posture was still good, even though I had quite a number of risk based on the small environment. So this is where you can look at, and you can automate it and assign to anybody if you need, but then it can help you see across. Now you can see the dashboard, meaning that as you are integrating different elements, right, it will be shown on your dashboard. So you have your AWS, you have your GCP, you have your GitHub connectors. It will all populate them on your dashboard for you. So as a cloud security engineer or cloud security analyst or cloud security architect, this is one of the tools you want to showcase your ability to be able to use in providing security architect recommendations or integrations or analysis. This is again regulatory compliance. You see it here. So it's working with 63 controls based off the Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark. And I just showed you where you can go and add other ones. So it will now show you the different compliance here, but we have only I'm working with only this one based off this tenant, and it's saying that 54 out of the 63 controls have been passed. So I have about I think 9 controls that it is not passing, and you can see it is flagging those controls. I see network security, I see it inside network security, it's flagging just this one, right, as the control that I am not meeting. Okay, there's another one here. Then if you come to IAM, you can see it's flagging manage identity security automatically. So there's a control here that I am not meeting, right? And I can check it to see. You can see that we can drill down and it can tell me which asset, right? So this particular one, managed identity should be enabled on web apps. So what it's trying to say is that I don't have a managed identity on this web app. It should be enabled. And if I resolve that, then I can automatically close that vulnerability, right? And you can see when you drill all the way to come, the risk is though low, but then the severity is high, but the risk is low because probably it's not seeing me. The high risk, but probably is not seeing so many things. Have I just created a dummy app today, right? So to enable, configure and manage identity in the Azure portal, navigate to your web app. From the left panel, select the identity. So Microsoft has even been fair enough to be able to give you some steps. And then if you need exemption, you can exempt, and all of that. So this is how, again, we play around the regulatory and compliance. So if you're somebody in GRC, you can say, I'm not a configuration person, right? That's why in my book, How to Break into Cybersecurity, one of the things I did was technical and non-technical. I told people, I say, you can do cybersecurity and be non-technical. Many people think, oh, cybersecurity is just penetration testing and ethical hacking. So you can be a GRC person, but you would, in your I tell people, I say, everybody's doing GRC. What stands you out? Imagine when you're putting your CV as a GRC person and you're saying that I'm conversant with using cloud, security posture management to provide regulatory governance, risk and compliance for an organization. It will stand you out versus somebody who says I'm very good at. So whether you have your ISO 27001 certification or you have your PCI certification, yes, but imagine that you know how to now use a tool, because it's what makes life easy. All those organizations would prefer somebody who knows how to use a tool. So I always say to, people who say, oh, I'm not technical. I'm like, yes, but the way technology has evolved now, they have made you non-technical people enjoy using and made life easier for you when you know how to use the tools to do your job. So as a regulatory and compliance person, for example, if I am responsible for GRC in an organization, right, I'll ask them to give me security reader access to the Azure, and I'll be able to see insights here without relying on anybody giving me asset register or CMDB, or relying on anybody telling me, explaining reports from their host when people logged in. No, from here I can get insights. Right. And even if your organization does not have money to invest in any tool right now, just giving you security reader access to Azure, you can be able to begin to tell them how compliant they are. First of all, you add the standards that your organization is expected to, and based off that standards, you begin to see assets and where they match. And all you need to do is, you can see here, download reports. And once you download it, it gives you a CSV that you need to use and do your reporting. So trust me, technology is now sweet. And I tell people, I say that's the niche. So when you don't have this extra level of skill, then you sit among every other person, and then at that point you begin to wonder why you're not being selected, or why I'm not getting this job. You need to have an extra layer, and what sets you apart, Here we're looking at workload protections, different workload protections that we have. Here I have, you can see vulnerability assessment. Of course, nothing is done. We have just in time. We have container image scanning, SQL vulnerability assessment. These are some of the protections that I have turned on, right? But I don't have anything that is using them, right? But this is where you will see them. To tell you how many assets that are unprotected and the ones that are protected, you can see, and you put all of this on the dashboard. So again, as a cloud security person, you can say, I want to be in cloud security, an architect. The cloud security architect is someone who looks at the design, make recommendation. An engineer is a person who will say they will know how to configure it. An analyst is you're just starting in the industry, you're doing reviews, and then you're doing workshops and spooling out reports and analyzing reports too. And then this is where you spool into the data and AI. Right? So before you come here for data and AI, you want to go back to environment and turn it on, right? So if you come here, data sensitivity, right, you would first of all have to turn it on, so you can see that these are the five sensitivity information types that's already using. So under finance, Microsoft already has this. So you can choose to say, no, I don't want to do anything around ABA routing number, right? Our organization does not use it. Okay, we do things with credit card, we do things with Swift code, and we do things with international banking number. And then if you have your own custom SIT, maybe based on the way, so if you're in Nigeria, I see that we had lots of audience in Nigeria, and you have the way your cards, our cards are, you can create your own sensitive information type under purview, and it will come here under custom, and you'll be able to add it. So if you come to custom, you will now be able to configure it. So this tenant, I don't have purview, but when you click configure, it'll be able to take you to purview, and you'll be able to now add that custom sensitive information type here. And so that would apply. So maybe an organization that is I had a student that was working for Lagos State LRS, right? So maybe they have sensitive documents for tax management system, or FIR driver's licenses, right? Driver licenses are sensitive data. And so you can create those custom sensitive information type and add it, and it will tell you all your applications. So it will tell you your storage that have that driver's license numbers. It will tell you applications that have driver's license numbers. And it can now tell you that these assets have this sensitive information type that you have flagged, and what action do you want to take. Right? If you come to order here, you can see other types, right, that you can choose to add. Or I keep telling people that I wait for the day I'll start to see Nigeria show up as some of these Microsoft SIT. It's so sad. we never show up, but we'll get there one day, right? So you can see driver's license, phone numbers. You can choose to add them, right? PII. So remember that bridge, right? Imagine if they had turned on Defender for Cloud, and then even without saying it should prevent, just even labeling it as sensitive information type, they could come here and identify things like people's, PII, so name, phone number, whatever information they had asked people to provide for them, right? And they will select it here, and that's it. So once you have done this here, you will now come back to here, right? And then this dashboard will now begin to show you, right, all the sensitive information types that you have. So you can see here, it's telling me good news, I don't have, right? That's fine. So you can see that it's telling me I have one managed database because I just created a random database. So if I had turned on, those sensitive information that it will start to scan. It has already scanned it and tell me it can't see any of those sensitive information type in this database because it's just, and nothing really is inside there. So it's covering it, but it's saying that nothing is inside this database that bridges any of the data and AI discoveries. So the same thing. So when you have your language models, right, it will be able to capture them here, your AI models. So play around with it. I just turned this on here. I'm going to play around with this here to see more things. So here to tell you, see your models and your endpoints, your services, your container, your data sets, right, that it will be able to tell you, tell you prompts that were scanned and then alerts, and then internet exposed data sources. It can tell you whether you have a storage asset, a managed database, or a hosted data that is exposed to the internet by virtue of the type of configuration. So you see that these are things that on your own, how many will you audit? But with Defender for Cloud, you'll be able to showcase you. And then this is where you add the DevOps to your pipelines or your GitHub, right, to be able to show you again. It has its own dashboard. Remember, I mentioned that the DevSecOps has its own dashboard where to show you your environment. All right. On that note, I would say thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to take any further questions.
Thank you very much, ma'am. This section is indeed very, very interactive and very interesting. Like, a lot of knowledge has been shared, a lot has been learned. Can we just give a reaction to our co-founder for the wonderful section, a reaction, good clap, show some love. Thank you very much, ma'am. So I can see someone hands is raised for question, XC400. Please, can you ask your question, please? Your hand is raised. Okay.
Good evening, Ma. Good evening, sir. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. So I want to ask, because recently I was doing some stuffs with data map. I was classifying some data for healthcare sector. And I want to ask, can we add such classified data to the data sensitivity in environment settings in Defender for Cloud?
Yes. So the first thing you want to do is, I don't have purview on this tenant turned on, but in your purview, you have created your sensitive information type, right? Yes. So you come here and you come to custom, right?
Okay.
So let me go back one bit again. So you come to Defender for Cloud. Remember, you first of all would have, I don't know if you joined the class from the beginning when I showed you how to set up. You have to first of all set up Defender for Cloud, right? By adding Defender for Cloud to your subscription, right?
I pretty know how to do that.
Okay, good. Right. I forgive me, I wasn't sure, just needed to make
No,
sure
no,
that.
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah,
I didn't want you
yeah.
to spend more time.
No, that's fine. So once you've done all those prerequisites, right? So the thing is, you come to the environment and you come to the data settings, and then you go to custom. Right. Now this custom is coming, please. So you can see no custom info types have been configured. Go to Purview's portal information. So when I click here, configure, it's going to redirect me to Purview. Are you seeing that? And once I go to Purview, it's going to, sorry, like I said, I don't have
Okay.
purview.
Let me quickly explain that process there, so you could just pick it up from there. So if it
Okay.
takes you to purview now, you go to information protection to create sensitivity labels. Is that the
Yes.
process?
Yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
so
So
for
that
you,
means it's not.
yeah, for you who have already created, you will now select those ones that you have created.
Oh, okay.
I seen it.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
this is just like somebody, this is like saying that somebody who doesn't have any need with purview needs to do it from here. But if you've already created it, this redirects you to purview. So you will now see those your custom sensitive information type that you created, right? You will now
Okay.
check the box for those ones you want. It will now come here and you will now see
And
it.
add
You
it
can see
up
the way these
here.
ones have 5 of it will now select it
Mhm.
and list it from here. Once it does that, then you come back here to the data and AI security dashboard under cloud security.
Mhm.
And again, number one, Microsoft Defender for cloud app should have been turned on for database,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that under database, under here, you have Microsoft Defender turned on for database. Again,
Okay.
I would summarize it and put it in the group again to
Okay.
answer. So here you can see database, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So on, you want to make sure that the database type, are you seeing these are the database types that we are covering?
Yes, ma'am.
These are them. So make sure that your database, your database type exists here. And so once that's been turned on, what you will see is that automatically in this dashboard, it will capture it here as managed. That database will show here as managed database. Are you seeing it? And you can validate it by clicking here again and confirm that your database
It's
is
actually the
listed,
right one there.
is actually exactly listed there. And once it shows there, it will automatically, this dashboard, be populating that your sensitive information type across that database. So it will be saying that it can see that data, and it can see sensitive information types that are matching in that database. Yeah.
So, ma'am,
You can chat me up on WhatsApp, and you can do a screen share of your environment, and we can walk through to it together.
All right,
That's
ma'am.
fine.
All right, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. A quick one, ma'am. Sorry for the extra 1 minute. So,
No, we're learning.
does this process replace the automated sensitivity label application from data map?
No. So your sensitivity label on data map. So what I'm hearing you say is that you have a automation that has been configured that maps sensitivity labels to your database.
Yes, that is after classifying the data, after scanning the data. By default, we expect that it gives us the scan result, and if we expand to analyze, we get sensitivity labels. That is if we already have one created in information protection. So it already classified those columns in the data set that are sensitive, and whatever label existing that is related to those data, it will be applied to it. So we see all those information when we expand. So what I'm now trying to ask is, in cases of maybe we are just trying to do a demo for someone who does not have the license for purview. So we linked up our MCT Azure to our DevOps account. Instead of us uploading that data to OneDrive, SharePoint, and apply the label manually, can we do this instead?
Yes.
Okay.
So don't forget that the sensitive information type it is using, remember, it's already on purview. You're just saying that I want you to take this thing on purview.
Okay.
Come and present a dashboard for me in Defender for Cloud, where Defender for Cloud can tell me that it can see this sensitive information type across this database. So if again on the data map side you have mapped those sensitive information types to the database, it's the same, it's just taking that information back. It's the same thing you will see if you go to Microsoft Defender for Cloud apps and go to file monitoring. You will just see a column there that talks about data label, that just tells you that, oh, this is your data, you have this label is matching it. It's the same thing that is just happening here, just telling Defender for Cloud that I want you to, on this dashboard, also interpret for me these SITs as they match this database. It's not going to, so it's not going to it's not
assigning. It's not assigning. It's just confirming to you from a reporting perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time, ma.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. So I already made a request to the group. Let's in, I would engage you.
Okay, they will. The team would sort you out.
All right. Thank you, ma.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm happy to jump on the call to just do screen share with you, and let's see how to make this work. Sorry, I get excited when I see configurations.
I'll be glad to.
Yeah.
All right. Ma.
Somebody else had their hands up.
Meet yourself. Yeah. Yes, I was looking for how to disconnect the audio. The echo was really.
Okay.
Who else wants to go? All right. If there's no other question, I'm active on the group too. Please let us know how to help you. If you have questions even after this call, if you're curious as to what's the career opportunity for me here, trust me, the opportunity, you can see it, it's staring at you in the face, right? Just think about it. Activate the 30 days. One of the things that I do that helps me learn is I use lots of trials. I have lots of tenants. That's why I couldn't quickly churn out this one. Just activate the 30 days trial. Just put a reminder somewhere that on the 25th day so that it doesn't debit your card or anything. Turn it on. Go and turn on 30 days trial of Purview. Turn on 30 days trial of something and play around it. Azure gives you 200 credits. Turn on a virtual machine. And as you're doing it, take screenshots, create run books. And when the 30 days has expired, that's fine. You now have a run book. You now have lots of screenshots that you can now use to start writing articles and talking about your learnings. And as you're doing it, people begin to see you. And the more people come to you, the more you have to research, the more you have to know, right? Again, like I said, one of the value add that I get from teaching is that it forces me to go and read, right? And because I have to read, then I know. And because I know, then I sound intelligent, right? So not because I'm intelligent. I tell people, I say, come on, intelligence is a function of your ability to be able to go and seek for knowledge. That's it. So that's the beauty about it. So don't come to this class after today and sit down, put a note and say, you know what, next week, put a date, I'm going to turn on 30 days trial of Defender for Cloud Apps, and Defender for Cloud, for Purview, for this. And my action point is I want to be able to achieve A, B, C, D. By the time you're done, you have enough run books to run with. Introduce this to somebody, and you'll be amazed at how this will open doors for you, because not many people know it, and life is becoming easier because almost everybody is going to the cloud, and people want to see how to stay. Just the fact that you could, even once you play around with it and you can see all the visibility, imagine just first of all even telling somebody that, can we come and do a POC on Defender for Cloud, and in that POC, you're turning it on for them just 30 days, and it's showcasing all the misconfigurations that exist in their tenant, and you're exporting that report and doing a report for them. Wouldn't anybody give you? Sorry, I'm a consultant, so I always think of service, and just imagine how that report can piggyback to opportunities, because when you're showing them this is your environment, I'm not telling you Defender Hotel can do this. I'm saying your environment is showing you have this, you have that, you have this high risk. They're going to say, how do we remediate it? And then that's when you sit down and start talking about your time and material effort. So if it's not even about consultant, you as a staff, sit with your boss. If you're not the head in your company or your department, sit with your boss and say, boss, have you thought about planning? Is it okay if I come and do a 30 minutes workshop for the team on Defender for Cloud? That's one of the ways that I grew my career. And when I was growing as an administrator, I would find out something. I would go and talk to my boss and say, I want to teach the whole, the department about this. And when I come and do my workshops, right, I'll go to my boss and say, can we turn on the trial, right? And then we'll have Microsoft partners, and I'll talk to them, and they'll tell me the implications of what we need to do. And we turn on the trials. I extract the report, the trial ends, and based off that report, I'll be showing the gaps. And no boss wants to see gaps in their face, then they will agree. And once they agree to do it, that's project. And once they agree, and once a project is done, you learn. And once you learn, your knowledge stays with you. Remember? Yeah, it stays with you. That is useful for your CV and for your portfolio. Okay, I'm done talking.
Right,
I've
got a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so very quickly. So just, using any other protection solution, antivirus like Sophos and others, do one still need all of that if one is using Microsoft Defender for Cloud for VMs on Azure?
If you have Defender for Cloud apps, you don't need any third-party antivirus or threat and vulnerability. If you have the budget to turn it on, you can see that they are all subscription-based functionalities, right? So if you have done your sizing and budgeting right, again, as somebody who does it in real environment, is way cheaper to use the Microsoft one because it's embedded in it versus the other one. And then from an administration perspective, it's easier. One dashboard. If you had to put in antivirus engine, put in threat and vulnerability management engine, put in endpoint detection response engine, 3 agents, 3 cost and licensing, 3 configurations, 3 dashboards versus you just turn on settings, and the cost is always way cheaper using this. So if you already have it, yeah, it doesn't make sense going to buy or. And again, the way to, I hope that answers your question, but just sitting on top of that is another way to convince your organization is you don't necessarily need to do big bang. You can say, let's work with XYZ number of assets, take that number of assets and integrate them and run it for a 30 days period, and you see the difference and the report, and you can use that to prove why your organization should move away from solution A to solution B.
All right, thanks so much. Though I use it for now, but my secure score is very, very low. So just see how best I can remediate that. Currently at 48%.
Yeah, so just look through the recommendations, right? And look through the recommendations, see what is flagging as if you want your secure score to go ahead, look at what is flagging as critical and see if it has less impact, and then do a proper plan and remediation. So ideally, things that are critical, you want to plan, okay, what's the impact if I make this change? And how can I make this change with less impact? And in some of those cases, you might have to have a step-by-step procedure and possible rollback plan to make those changes. And if it's a live environment, then you want to do in test, and then based on the test, you want to go into production. You want to go to change management and go to production. Yeah.
All right, well noted.
Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
See you next week for the last phase of this class. Over to you, Emmanuel.
Yeah, thank you very much for that amazing section, man. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll be having the part 2 of this section, and Madam Joy will also be taking that class. Please, let's try to attend. Like, it's going to be enriching, like this section we just had now. So let's stay tuned and be informed. If you're not in our community group chat, I dropped the link to the group chat and also to our YouTube channel. Please do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, so that at least you can always get notification anytime we upload our videos. Thank you very much for joining. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Madam Joy.